In last week's update, Fall Guys unvaulted 10 maps. In this video we'll go over what they unvaulted, what's still vaulted, why stuff is still vaulted and for how long, and some overall thoughts and explanation on vaulting because it's been 7 months since my last video about Fall Guys vaulted levels. So in the most recent update, the following levels were added back to solos, duos and squads: Bean Hill Zone, Frantic Factory, Perfect Match, Royal Fumble, Star Chart and Wall Guys. Pretty huge. Then solos exclusive rounds, Airtime, Hoverboard Heroes and Tail Tag. And finally, Egg Scramble was added back to duos and squads. It's basically impossible to get in duos, but let's ignore the issue of that, it's outside the scope of this video. So those are the 10 maps that got brought back, meaning there's now 53 levels in the game with 29 still left vaulted. Certainly an improvement, but still leaves a lot left to be desired. Along with these changes though, some of the creative levels in solos were rotated. We had 7 rounds removed: Scythes and Roundabouts, Runner Beans, Spinner Sprint, Lane Changes, Gentle Gauntlet, Slide Showdown and Upload Heights. This was in favour of 10 rounds being added, all from a Rainbow Rally event a couple months ago. Coming together: Prideful Path, Heartful Heat, In the Groove, Out and About, Pink Parade, Waveway Splits, Tunnel of Love, Rainbow Rise and Clifftop Capers. Pretty good changes if you ask me. Really feels like they're listening to the community with this vault update. There's still some issues, but we'll discuss that in a few minutes. Before that, we need to talk about what's still vaulted and some details about that. So the round that's been gone the longest, Bubble Trouble, has been vaulted for 404 days. Yep, well over a year now. It was vaulted during SS1 because of a bug where bubbles sometimes didn't spawn, which is understandable, but Bean Hill Zone had the same bug and was fixed in SS3, so surely that bug isn't in Bubble Trouble anymore. Though in SS4, this round somehow got broken again. I got it on my last live stream in the Vault Show and it literally broke the entire game by just getting stuck on the loading screen for 5 minutes before I gave in and restarted the game. Hopefully they fix that soon because a round being gone over 400 days is genuinely absurd. Next, also during SS1 is Speed Circuit, 364 days now. If I just uploaded this video a day later, then it would be a year. This had a flashing lights bug that was fixed at SS2 launch, and yet the round never came back. Okay, now most of these were removed for no reason rather than actually being broken. Some still had bugs, but I won't go over all of them because this is when the concept of vaulting started, removing rounds just to make QA and development faster and easier. So at SS2 launch, 342 days ago, Bounce Party, Egg Siege, Hoarders, Power Trip and Some Fruit were vaulted, and are yet to be seen since. A little bit after, Space Race sits at 320 days. I think this is the round that most people think of when they think of vaulting. Nearly 11 months now. It was such an amazing level and was literally only in the game for 3 weeks. Cosmic Highway lasted a bit longer, but now has been gone for 301 days unfortunately. Similar for Treat Thieves on 295 days. Most people forgot about this round, but it's among the ones I missed the most. It was literally only in the game for 5 days. Now, a lot was vaulted when SS3 Sunken Secrets launched 274 days ago. Big Shots, Button Bashers, Freezy Peak, Night Fever, Penguin Pool Party, Rock and Roll, Roll On, Short Circuit, Skiffle, The Slime Scraper and Tiptoe Finale. That's a pretty long list. Now, Sweet Thieves was initially in SS3 launch but got removed pretty quickly because of an unknown glitch, which happened 256 days ago now. The round is still available in custom lobbies, but I'm counting it as vaulted since it hasn't come back to the show selector yet. Hopefully it does soon. Now, final few, the ones that were vaulted when SS4 launched. Seems recent, but these have all still been gone for 105 days, aka 3.5 months. Fruit Shoot, Hoop Shoot, Hoopsie Daisy, Hyperdrive Heroes, Penguin Pursuit, Puzzle Path and Volleyball. So yeah, while we do have 53 levels in the game, this is still a pretty absurd list, especially considering how well over half of these have been gone for well over 9 months now. Just for some context before I move on to why stuff is actually vaulted and my thoughts of it, I have to quickly explain the Vault Show and how that affects things. So for those unaware, the Vault Show contains every round in Fall Guys, both unvaulted and vaulted. It's only available in custom lobbies with 12 to 40 players if you want to play it. Best bet is for streamers such as myself, so make sure you subscribe with notifications so you can get in on my vaulted custom streams. But anyway, it does have most of these maps with the exception of Tiptoe Finale, Sweet Thieves and Treat Thieves since they're squads only and this show is solos. It's also missing Pixel Painters, but that's not important since it isn't vaulted. However, something rather absurd, it's missing Space Race and Cosmic Highway. When the show initially launched in March 2023, a bit over halfway through SS3, it did actually contain these maps, but just a couple days later they got removed. Cosmic Highway had a perfectly valid reason: the platforms were just completely missing on PlayStation 5. Space Race, not so sure. Some people said it might be flashing lights or the ending being bugged, but it wasn't too significant. But also I never got it, so I can't say too much about it. However, a point I'm trying to make, these issues were during SS3. We've had 5 updates to the game since then across 5 months, so there's a pretty good chance that these levels are fixed. You might be wondering why they'd fix them if they're still vaulted and literally work perfectly fine, and some of them were previously bugged during SS3 that got fixed and never brought back. You might be wondering why they've fixed them if they're still vaulted and literally unplayable, but the same applies to most levels in the Vault show. Since I play the show quite frequently on live streams, I've played most vaulted levels recently, and I can tell you most of them work perfectly fine, and some of them were previously bugged during SS3 that got fixed but never brought back. I will admit some of the maps have minor bugs, like one of Freezy Peak's walls randomly went invisible, but then there's some other positive changes, such as, again, Freezy Peak. This background looks absolutely amazing and so pretty, why is this not in the actual game? And Slime Scraper just looks so much better. Look at these colours. This map has no bugs and it's one of the community's favourites. Why does it have to be vaulted? Okay, I'm about to move on, but just for anyone asking the question of why I'd complain about vaulting if I can just play the show instead, I have 3 arguments against that. First of all, not everyone can play this show and not all the time. Usually with its player count you do have to rely on streamers to join, and like pretty much every custom lobby it's always very sweaty and hard to actually win. Difficult games are fun, but not all the time. Sometimes I just want a casual game, in which case I'll just play some core shows. Second, as I mentioned before, the show doesn't even have every vaulted round. Space Race, Cosmic Highway, Treat Thieves, Sweet Thieves and Tiptoe Finale are all completely missing. Some of these are some fan favourites of the community too. 3. One Hidden Away custom show is not the core of the game. If you want to play normal stuff in the show selector, whether it's LTMs or just the core shows of the game, you've got no chance of playing these rounds. This also means you can barely get any reward from playing the Vault. Sure, you can complete your dailies and get half a level from playing 10 shows per day in customs. Yes, I'm not kidding, it's only half a level. But yeah, these rewards clearly don't match up to what you can get from just playing the game normally. So while this show does exist and I do play it a lot, I hope it's very clear that does not excuse vaulting or really make the situation much better. Just because you can hypothetically play these levels in a pool of 76 total doesn't mean you always can, or it's the way that everyone wants to play. Right, now that I've explained all of that, you should be willing to understand some of the basic problems with vaulting if you didn't already. It obviously decreases the variety in the game, making things get more repetitive faster with a smaller pool of rounds, and it also means a lot of people can't play their favourite rounds, or just one they miss that they haven't seen in a while. If you play Fall Guys enough, you've undoubtedly encountered the whole variety problem. Sure, there's a lot of maps in the game, but you still do end up getting the same ones quite frequently, and that round pool really doesn't change very often. Just for reference, it took 98 days between the SS4 launch and the most recent Summer Breeze update for a vault change to happen, and it was a whopping 169 days between SS3 launch and SS4 launch that nothing got unvaulted before then. Plus, when that vault change did happen at SS4 launch, it was just 12 maps being removed in favour of 12 being added. The total number of maps in the game did not change. Now, credit where credit is due, this most recent vault change was good. 10 maps added, no strings attached, nothing had to get replaced or removed, it didn't negatively impact anything, it was just 10 being added. If they can continue with that, it'd be awesome, but the way they've explained vaulting in the past definitely insinuates that we aren't going to get back to having all 82 maps unvaulted in Fall Guys, which at the end of the day does suck. The ideal world would be that we have every map available no matter what, unless it's actually broken, in which case it will get removed and then fixed in the next update or two, which is actually how it worked before SS2 launch. But enough talking about how vaulting affects the game. If you played enough, I'm sure you've already noticed enough of this and got annoyed with it, but why is vaulting actually happening? I did briefly explain, but I want to fully show Mediatonic's stance, everything they've said about it and their perspective. While I firmly believe the negatives outweigh the positives for the idea of vaulting, and most of the community would agree with me, it is important to hear out why exactly they're doing this and how we could come up with some sort of compromise that benefits the team behind Fall Guys and all its developers, as well as us as players. So there's 2 times Fall Guys has properly talked about vaulting. Let me summarise both. This first one was November 2022, about a week before SS3 launch. Basically, they said they've been working on creating tools to improve their testing and QA abilities, to focus on making new content while also keeping the game as stable as possible. I'll read this next thing word for word. Because of this, we need to limit which rounds are available in the game on an ongoing basis, which means some have been removed. This process, which we'll refer to as vaulting, will remain a part of Fall Guys for the foreseeable future. Now, foreseeable future is probably a nice indefinite way of saying that they don't plan on changing this or going back on it at all. Now, this is 9 months ago, but it still pretty much stands with what we've seen since. So that first acknowledgement was kind of brief and vague, but in February 2023, about the middle of SS3, they did go into some more detail. They first go over how Fall Guys has grown over the past few years and how many new rounds and variations and features and whatever else have been added, which is true, the game has grown a lot. They want to keep giving us new content, content, but they're evolving the way they do that, which is with vaulting. They say that maintaining every round and the hundreds of variations in every season, having them split between core shows, side shows, events and custom lobbies allow too many bugs and errors to make their way into the game. At the size the game is now, to be able to achieve a good level of stability and content, they need to manage how much they are trying to ship and test in every update. So vaulting select rounds allows them to make ongoing updates to the game while still providing a regular rotation of our favourite rounds. Since some of that is worded kind of weirdly, let me just rephrase and summarise it. Because of the amount of levels and variations in the game spread across many shows and modes and events and whatnot, it takes a long time for them to test every single thing for every single update, and so the game becomes very unstable, with them not being able to be thorough enough with making sure all this content works properly, and that basically this problem is amplified with the more content they add. So the only three ways they have to do this is taking longer with testing updates, testing the same and just hoping they've covered everything and that it all works, or the third option that they decided to go with, removing certain content so they just have to test a select amount. Now, no matter how you feel about Mediatonic's reasoning for vaulting, whether you agree or disagree, now we understand both sides, the community and the developers. So how can we compromise and fix this problem while keeping everyone happy? Really, I think they've already taken a step in the right direction with the Summer Breeze update, and they just need to keep that up a bit more frequently. Though there are also some slight changes I would suggest, and an alternative solution. Hopefully someone from Mediatonic is watching and can take this feedback into consideration. All of you should definitely leave a like to increase the chances of it being seen by them, and just more people in general. More awareness needs to be brought on this. Okay, so expanding on the Summer Breeze update a bit, obviously the update itself did a lot and came with a big announcement, but we're just focusing on the vaulting aspect here. A day after the update, they just brought back 10 maps, no catch or anything, which is absolutely amazing, and that itself is really good. But a slight problem, we're still missing 29 levels, and this took 3.5 months since the last vault rotation. So if they keep doing updates like this which rotate the vault, definitely more often, maybe around once every Fame Pass, which is about 5 or 6 weeks, this approach would work a lot better and we'd end up with every map back in the game pretty soon after. Now, I know that probably won't work in practice. The vault rotation every 6 weeks or so is a great idea and there's no reason they couldn't do that, but constantly adding stuff to a round pool goes against the entire reason why vaulting was implemented in the first place. I think there's a pretty clear solution here though. If we can't get rid of vaulting entirely, these rotations just need to be significant enough and happen frequently enough, and maybe focus on the rounds that have been gone the longest, like Bubble Trouble, Space Race, Speed Circuit and those kinds of levels. I really don't think maps going into the vault would be a problem if they were getting replaced, and if you knew you were going to just see that map return in just a few months at the most. Let's use Hexagon as an example. Not my favourite round, but it is for a lot of the community and is iconic for the game. So just pretend for a moment that Hexagon is indeed your favourite map and it gets vaulted. Kinda sucks, but if it gets replaced by something cool like Space Race and you know it's going to come back in a couple months and that you still have Hexaring and Hexaterrestrial to play, is it really that bad? It would definitely be much better than the situation we have right now anyways. That's the main solution, but I also have a more unique idea related to a vault show. This show exists, so while some of the rounds might be bugged and not have been properly tested, Mediatonic clearly isn't worried about us actually playing the rounds as long as they aren't in the core shows. So how about after an update, this turns into a show in the show selector? Now, in case of any issues, there should be a clear disclaimer here that stuff might be broken. Maybe there'll be a flashing lights bug, maybe the game might crash or freeze, or maybe a level will just not work. If people are warned of that and know what to expect, I see no problem. Now, with this show being available after an update, you suddenly have thousands upon thousands of players all playing these vaulted maps, way more testing than Mediatonic's own teams probably ever could do. Maybe leave the show open for just a few days, that's enough. Now, if a round ends up being broken in this show, no big deal, but if a round works perfectly fine after being played maybe hundreds of thousands of times by a huge number of unique players, each on different platforms and internet and playstyles and whatnot, isn't that a good sign it can be added back without Mediatonic actually having to test it themselves? Again, I don't know the full logistics of doing this. I know it's not entirely that simple. I'm not a game developer or anything, but I think this could definitely be implemented and the community would love it, and this really would be an ideal solution for everyone. Really though, the last solution I mentioned would be okay too. It's just that vaulting is a big issue, as I've talked about it plenty in this video already, and something definitely needs to be done. This is important for the long-term success of the game and enjoyment of the players, just like you and me. Feel free to comment your thoughts on my thoughts and which vaulted map you missed the most. I'm happy to read them all. Click on the left for Fall Guys' huge announcement if you missed it, or on the right for a brand new Fame Pass. Thanks for watching, bye.